How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're starting Daf Mem Beis, Daf 42 of Masechet Nazir, friends. Well, I don't know. Daf 42 we talk about some technical Nazir stuff. It's gonna get kind of technical tomorrow as well. But yeah. All right, we can start in Daf Mem Beis with Aleph all the way at the top. Amar Mar, we said earlier, v'chum shegilchu shelo besar, o sheshiru shtei sayris leosav lo klum. Oh, so we had said 2 days ago, that when it comes to a Nazir, a Mitzorah, or the Levim when they got inaugurated, so it says that it says v'chulam, by any of these scenarios, shegilchu, if they remove their hair of their body, shelo besar, without a razor, they use some other means, o sheshiru shtei sayros, or if they left over 2 hairs that they didn't fully remove the hair, there were still 2 hairs left over that were supposed to be removed. Loss of lo klum, it does not work if they don't use a razor or if they leave over 2 hairs. Says Rav Acha ber Ika, Zos omeres rubo kikulo midai raise. So says Rav Acha ber Ika, one second, my chair is a little bit wobbly. Come on, unwobble. Okay, it's unwobbled, I think. So says Rav Acha ber Ika that this teaches that rubo kikulo midai raise, that the concept of a majority being like the whole thing is clearly midoraisa mimai. How come? Midigali rachmana gabe nazir b'yom hashvi galchenu. From the fact that by a nazir it says a nazir tomei, it says that on day 7 they have to remove all of his hair, and that means they have to remove all of the hair of his head. So hachahu dadi kakulo. So specifically by nazir, the Torah had to say that you have to remove all of the hair. Alma, implying that in general, however, rubo kikulo, we would say that the majority of the hair would be enough. So we see that the concept of rubo kikulo, that the majority of the hair is like the majority of something is like all of something, is midoraisa, and that's why the Torah had to go out of its way to say that. However, by nazir you got to go for the whole thing. Friends, there's a lot of girls outside in the park. So in the park, which is always the scene of all of my interruptions. So for the past 2 days, I don't know why, but for the past 2 days, there has been a girls' school that seems to be conducting their classes in the park outside of my house. And I guess when you have 100 young girls in a park, it tends to get noisy. I really don't understand why their school seemed to move right outside my window. So anyways, it's pretty noisy, and my neighbor has not yelled at them. Alright, so Maskef Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, hi benazir tomei ksiv. So Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina says, yes, but this is by a nazir tomei. So how do we know that this would apply to a regular nazir as well? That you'd have to remove all of the hair. So hi benazir tomei ksiv. So machaku all of my rove. In Eretz Yisrael, they laughed at Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina because they said, "Michdei nazir tomei di besar minalan." How do we know that a nazir tomei you have to remove the hair with a razor? Minazir tahor yalif. We learn it out from nazir tahor that since by nazir tahor you use a razor, so we learn out also by nazir tomei you use a razor. So leisi nazir tahor v'leilif minazir tomei. So with regard to having to remove all of the hair, so sure it's written by nazir tomei, but apply it to a nazir tahor. That just like by nazir tomei, it says in the Torah that if they have to remove all of the hair, and if you remove 2 hairs, if you leave 2 hairs, then garnished, it doesn't work. It's also by nazir tahor ki shayir shtei sayris v'lo klum avad. So oichid by nazir tahor, you have to remove all of the hair, and if you leave any over, so then it doesn't work. Boya sakasha nazir shegilach v'shir shtei sayris. Okay, so now we're going to ask a few very technical questions until we get to the Mishnah in about 10 lines. So if you have a Nazir who shaved the hair of his head, but he left 2 sayros, so that's a problem. So machrosho, and then he kind of fell asleep for a while, and like several days, maybe like a week or more, and by then his hair had grown, whatever he had already cut had now grown. And at that point he then decides he's going to remove the final 2 hairs. So basically he shaves all of his hair, leaves 2 hairs, which makes it right. He didn't fulfill his obligation because he has 2 hairs remaining. he then kind of like, forgot about it. In the meantime, the rest of his hair grew back, essentially, to some extent. And now he decides, oh yeah, right, there's those 2 hairs, let me go remove them now. But by then, there's already more hair. Mahu, mima'akve olo. Do we say that, well, now you have to remove all of the hair again? Or do we say, no, as long as he goes back and removes the 2 hairs that he never got to initially, that would be enough? And it doesn't seem like we answer that question. And there's going to be some more of these kind of very technical questions. But Rava asks, Nazir shagilach v'niach shtei cyrus, a fellow, a Nazir who shaved his head, but he left 2 hairs. V'gilach achas v'nosha achas, and then from those 2 hairs, he removed one, and then the other one fell out. Mahu. What's the halacha? I don't understand. What's the kasha? Is it saying that is he asking whether you can remove 1 hair at a time? Meaning, you removed all the hair of the head. You left 2 hairs. You then removed one of them. What should be the problem? Okay, so now there's no longer 2 hairs left. Now rather say fakert. Say, he shaved all the hair of his head. He left 2 hairs. One of them fell out, and at which point, when there was only one left, which isn't really considered, I guess, multiple hairs, it's only 1 hair, he then decides he's going to remove that hair, but he kind of lost his chance, I guess, to get a haircut, because I guess that doesn't apply when there's only 1 hair, because the other one fell out. Okay, he says, well, no, it doesn't count as removing the hair, as shaving the hair, because there's no hair. What do you mean that it's not considered like he shaved his hair because there is no hair? If there is no hair, then doesn't that mean that Memele he did shave his hair? So nonetheless, mitzvahs giluach einkan. Even though there's no hair here, still he's not mekayim the mitzvah of giluach. If the hair falls, or if he leaves 2 hairs, one falls out, and then the other one he cuts, that wouldn't work. Nazir shechofef mefasbes, Nazir chofef mefasbes avalo sorik. Says the Mishnah that a Nazir can shampoo his hair, and he can even separate the hairs with his hands, with his fingers, avalo sorik, but he can't use a comb, right? Because obviously we're concerned, right? The concern is about removing hair. So we say he can shampoo his hair, that's fine. He could even separate his hairs with, as long as he's used his hands, that's fine. But don't use a comb. In fact, the Gemara, chofef mefasbes money, Reb Shimoni. So how come he can shampoo his hair and separate the hairs with his hands? It's Reb Shimon. When we look at the Shabbos, the machlokus between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon says davar shemiskaven is mutter. Reb Yehuda says davar shemiskaven is also. So here, he's not allowed to remove the hairs of his head. But we're saying if he's shampooing his hair, and some hair falls out, that's fine. That's not a big deal. So therefore he's allowed to, it's okay. He didn't intend to do it, and therefore it's okay. And therefore he could shampoo his hair. It's not a concern that he's going to be intentionally removing his hair. Aval lo sorek ason rabbanon. But one second, but when it says that you can't use a comb, that sounds like the rabbis, meaning the rabbis being Rabbi Yehuda, who argues on Reb Shimon. So that sounds like the rabbis, right? Who say, davar she'ein miskavin is also, right? We're saying you're not allowed to comb your hair. But when you comb your hair, I mean, who's to say that you're necessarily going to remove hairs? It should be a davar she'ein miskavin. And yet we're saying that it's also Reish Reb Shimon v'sefer Rabbanan. I don't understand. We're saying that you could shampoo your hair and you can separate hairs with your hands because it's a davar she'ein miskavin. That's like Reb Shimon. But then we're saying, but don't comb. That sounds like we're saying davar she'ein miskavin is also, which is like Rabbi Yehuda / the Rabbanan. Amrav kula Reb Shimoni kol hasorik l'asir nimin meduldolos miskavin. So the Gemara answers, so says Rave, no, the entire Mishnah is Reb Shimon, but there's a difference between, running your hands through your hair versus running a comb through your hair. When you run your hands through your hair, you may not actually remove hair, and it's not your intention to remove hair. Whereas when you use a comb, sort of your intention by using a comb is that any loose hairs will be removed as well. So, any loose hairs or any, I guess, weak hairs will be removed as well. And therefore, using a comb is not a davar she'ein miskavin, and that is why it is also even according to Reb Shimon. So the whole Mishnah is Reb Shimon. There's just a fundamental difference between shampooing and using your hand on the one hand and using a comb on the other. Using a comb would be also. Says the Mishnah, Rabbi Yishmael Omer says, Rabbi Yishmael lo yachov ba'adama. That a Nazir cannot shampoo with earth. Because if you shampoo with earth, it is going to remove hairs, and of course a Nazir is not allowed to remove hairs. Right? It is necessarily going to remove hairs. Is the Mishnah saying that you can't shampoo your hair with earth because it removes hair, which is a problem? Or is it saying because there are certain types that remove hair, therefore you cannot shampoo with any kinds of earth, even earth that wouldn't remove hair? L'may nafkamina, what's an nafkamina? Could go into ika adama de lo masa, right? If you have earth that would not remove the hair, that's where we have the question. If we're saying that you can't shampoo a Nazir cannot shampoo their hair with earth because it will remove hairs. But if you have a shampoo that doesn't remove hair, then I would say it should be okay. But, right, so if we know that it won't remove the hairs, so then it should be fine. But if you say that you can't shampoo your hair with earth because since there are certain types of earth that will remove hairs, therefore you can't shampoo your hair with any kinds of earth, so then you wouldn't be able to use any kind of earth. Teku, we say, ich weiß nicht. Says the Mishnah, if you have a Nazir who is drinking wine all day long, we only administer one set of lashes if he was only warned once. However, if they said more than one time, don't drink wine, but he continued to drink wine, then he's going to be chayiv a set of lashes for each warning that he received. If a fellow was shaving the ganstug, he was shaving all day. If he was shaving all day, so if they only warned him once, so then he's only chayiv one set of lashes. Ela achas, fine. But if he's shaving all day, I don't know how you could shave all day. I mean, I guess maybe different parts of your head. And they keep on telling him, don't do it, and they keep on warning him. So then he's going to be chayiv a set of lashes for each warning that he received. If he was becoming tameh to the dead, impure with dead tumah, so then, or all day, he's only chayiv one set of lashes if they warn him but once. But if they repeatedly warn him, do not become, don't be tameh mace, and he keeps on doing it, so then he's going to be chayiv a set of lashes corresponding to each warning received. Says the Gemara, Itmar, it was stated on Merabin. Wow, all of a sudden it's so quiet. Either all these girls are entertained, or it's going to get very loud again soon. I guess we'll find out. Itmar Amar Rabba Amar Avuna. Says Rabba in the name. So Rabba says in the name of Rav Huna. Mikra Male Diber Akosov. The pasuk says by Nazir Lo Yitama, that he cannot become tameh. Kshu Omer Lo Yavo, but it also says Lo Yavo, that he cannot come. Lazir ala Tuma, Lazir ala Bia. So it's saying that if he becomes, right, there's three ways that he could become tameh mace. One is by touching a mace. The other is by carrying a mace. So even if you don't touch it, but you're carrying it. And thirdly, by going into a ohel, a tent or a house, a construct, a building that has a dead body in it. So says Rabbah in the name of Rav Huna that when the pasuk says lo yitama and lo yavo, to say that if you touch a mace and then you go into a house that has a mace, so then you will be, right, it will be considered like two separate tumas, and you could be chayiv lashes as a nazir for each one separately. Aval tuma v'tuma lo, but not multiple rounds of tuma. If you touch a mace and then you touch another mace, then that wouldn't count as two separate tumas. For Rav Yosef Amar Elohim Amar Rav Huna afilu tuma v'tuma, to which Rav Yosef says ma pitom. Rav Huna would say even tuma followed by tuma. Dam Rav Huna, because Rav Huna says Nazir shay omer beveis hakvaris. If you have a Nazir who is in a cemetery, so he was already tameh, v'hoshit lo meso umes acher, and then they pass to him either a dead relative of his or another or a different corpse. V'nagabo, and he touches the corpse, chayiv. He's going to be chayiv another time. Amaya mitame v'koyim. but he's already tummy because he's in the Beis HaKvaros. We assume that he already became tummy when he went to the Beis HaKvaros, so he's already tummy. And then they pass him a corpse and he becomes tummy again. So that's tuma achar tuma. So we see that Rav Huna clearly holds, says Rav Yosef, that even tuma followed by another tuma would be a separate tuma. But Abaye asks a kasha, a kohen. That when it comes to a kohen, and we're assuming it's talking about a kohen gadol over here, so also just like a nazir, a kohen gadol cannot become tummy to any relatives, shahaya, or to anybody, or to, including his close relatives. Shahaya lo meis munach al ksefo, and the kohen gadol had a corpse on his shoulder. Vahoshit lo meiso meisacher, and then they gave to him either a dead relative or a different corpse. V'noga bo, and he touched it. Yochel yechayiv, is it possible that he will be chayiv? Tamloma v'lo yechalo. The pasuk says that he shouldn't become profaned. Profaned. He shouldn't become tameh. B'misha eino mechulo, somebody who is not yet mechulo. As opposed, right? So this kohen gadol who already had a corpse on his shoulder was already tameh. He was already in a state that he's not allowed to be in. So when they pass him another corpse, he doesn't get another tumah. So we see that from this brayse that there is not tumah achar tumah, right? So right, tumah v'tumah. So Rav Yosef wanted to, prove that according to Rav Huna there is tumah v'tumah. From the fact that we said if you have a nazir in the Beis HaKvaros who's already tameh and then you pass him a corpse, he's tameh again. But yeah, we have this brisa that says that if there was a mace on the shoulder of the kohen gadol, and then they give him another mace, he does not receive more tumah because he's already mechula, right? It says v'lo yechalal, he's already mechula. Amalei v'tikshilach mas nisin. But then Rav Yosef responds to Abaye and he says, yeah, but what do you do about our Mishnah? That it says in our Mishnah by a Nazir, that if he was becoming to mace throughout the day, he would only be chayav lashes once, if they only warned him once. But if they warned him multiple times, then he's going to be chayav makas for corresponding to each warning. But once he already becomes tameh once, he's already tameh. So how could he receive more lashes? So Ella kasha adade. So it sounds like we have a kasha. On the one hand, our Mishnah is saying that you can become tameh multiple times. On the other hand, we have this brisa that says that you can only become tameh. Right? It says v'lo yichalo, that once you're mechulol, it doesn't count as a separate tumah. So la kasha kan b'chiburin, kan shelo b'chiburin. So the Gemara answers, well, there's a difference. In the brisa was talking about where the kohen gadol had a corpse already on his shoulder, and then he touched another corpse, and we're saying in the brisa he does not become tameh again. However, our Mishnah is talking about where he touched the corpse multiple times, but he wasn't, he touched it and then he stopped and then touched it again. So it was separate touchings, and therefore he's going to be chayiv multiple times. But one second. So Rav Yosef seems to be assuming from the fact that the brisa is talking about tumah b'chiburin, right? The kohen gadol was carrying the corpse, and then it's a shaila of does he become tameh again, and how many lashes are there? So it sounds like Rav Yosef is assuming that this concept of tumah when you're already touching tumah is a d'oraisa concept. But Ha'amr Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amr Rav Yaneh, Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef says the name Rav Yaneh, lo amru Tumah b'chiburin ela l'tumah v'kodshim. That when it comes to tumah b'chiburin, it's only with regard to truma and kodshim. Aval l'nazir v'osa pesach lo, but not for a nazir and osa pesach. V'yomar d'oraisa ma'ishno. And if you say it's d'oraisa, then what should be the difference? This is talking about a case where Shimon is touching a corpse, and then Ruvain touches Shimon. So the brisa says, or is it a brisa? Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef says name Rav Yanai, that so if Shimon is touching a corpse and then Reuven touches Shimon, lo amru tuma b'chiburin el l'tuma v'kodshim. So then Reuven would only be tameh vis-a-vis truma and kodshim. He would not be able to eat truma and kodshim. Aval l'nazir v'osa pesach lo, but he would not be considered tameh with regard to if he's a nazir, in regard to a nazir becoming tameh, or being able to eat korban pesach. He would not be considered tameh. But if you say that Tumah b'chiburin is midoraisa, then what should be the difference between Truma, Kodshim, Korban Pesach, Nazir? It should all be the same. If it's also right, if it's Tumah d'oraisa, it's Tumah d'oraisa. So the Gemara answers, Kan b'chibur adam ba'adam, Kan b'chibur adam b'meis. It depends. The brisa where it says where it assumes that Tuma Bechibun is Midoraisa, right? The Brisa where it talks about the Kohen with the corpse on his shoulder and then he touches the other mace and it's a kasha. Does he become Tameh again? Does he get Makis again? That whole Shaila, it's the Oraisa. So that's talking about where it was, that was talking about where's mace b'mace, right? Chibure Adam b'mace, right? So that's talking about where the Kohen Gadol was carrying a mace directly, and then he touched another mace. Whereas the case where we're saying it's derabanan is where Reuven isn't touching the corpse, he's touching Shimon, and therefore it's only midirabanan. And there's a difference between Truma and Kachim on the one end, and Korban Pesach and Nazir on the other. Friends, that was the Membez of Masechta Nazir. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out. Bye.